gentlemen, and welcome to Fight for Our Freedom Radio. And tonight we are so honored to have with us my good friend, Marshall Masters. Marshall is a former CNN science feature news producer. He is a freelance writer, a television analyst. He is a publisher for Yowza.com. Marshall has been studying the Nibiru flyby since 1999, and he has written many articles and books on sustainable survival communities, crop circles, impact events, and et cetera, et cetera. And we want to thank you, Marshall, for all your work that you've done. You're one of the most knowledgeable Nibiru researchers that I've had on. And every time you come here, you share so much with us. And I just can't wait to find out what you're going to share with us tonight. But I am going to lead you along because I know you want to talk about a few things that you have on your agenda. But before we get started, what in the wild, wild, wild world of weather is happening? What is happening out there, Marshall? Are we feeling the birth pains?
Well, I think right now we're having a combination of two things. One is that the Planet X system, which is a mini constellation of a brown dwarf with multiple planets and moons, is coming through the core of our system, and our sun is interacting with it, and the result is that our sun is getting brighter. And this brightness is bringing more light. This is the reason why we have all the chemtrailing, because they want to reflect the photons back into space, because the photons carry radiation, and that's really what it's all about, radiation. And what we're seeing around the world right now, we've reported 2018 was the worst year in recorded history for fireball observations and for earthquakes of all magnitude. I mean, even just now, we've had Etna and major quakes. This activity keeps going on. People are starting to notice that, there are those that say, well, this stuff happens all the time. Yeah, it does. The question is how often does it happen? All right. And we're seeing levels
did
of
you know we had a
activity.
7.7 today in Peru?
Yeah.
Okay, now they're jiggling the numbers around. So they're saying it's a 7.7. What is it really?
Aha, yeah, that's what USGS always does. And they've been doing this for many years. When I first got into it, you didn't have this jiggering going on, but they do it now so that statistically what they can do is they can say to people, well, major earthquakes, there's no change, magnitude 5 and above, da 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 da. Well, it's because they're downgrading everything. So 5.1 becomes a 4.7. Well, if it becomes a 4.7 or a 4.8, it's no longer in their arbitrary cutoff. And then there's things that happen and they just don't report them after all. So that's what's going on. And what I'm getting in my email box right now is from a lot of people about when's the pole shift, when's this, when's that, when's the other thing. I really hate telling people dates for one reason. Give someone a date, and the first thing they'll do is smear 5 tubes of crazy glue to their butt and sit down.
Well, if you give me a date, I'm just going to crack open a bottle of tequila.
Oh, that's my gal. That's my gal. Time, tide, and bad baby wait for no man. And
There's
so
no wasting time for anything. I want my last belt, baby.
that's it, And sure enough, I mean, that to me sounds like a good way to do it. And what I was really thinking for tonight, because everybody goes win, 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 win. And everybody, we have this 128 character, 24-hour cycle level of interest. And we burn out so fast. We're just totally, um, intelligence now is like Chinese food. Wait a half hour and you're hungry again. And this is what we're doing. And so what I was thinking to do about the when questions, because it really, I write back and I go, what are you doing to prepare? And it comes back and it's like, I got an extra case of noodles at Costco. Oh, wow, that's impressive. That's impressive. Yeah, baby. That'll get you through a 10-year tribulation. You betcha.
Well, the first thing I did was stock the liquor cabinet.
Uh, First thing first. First thing first. You know, I mean, why go to, why watch? You just can't sit there and watch the end of life as we know it without being medicated. And
Well,
yeah,
you never know. Some meteor might land on my leg and I might have to saw it off. I don't want to do that non-medicated.
that's pretty extreme. You know,
I got my leather strap all ready to bite on.
Oh, this is, this is, if we're ever in the car together, I'll drive.
Now
And
you
I
know
always
why they
like to
call
let
me Bad Baby.
oh, yeah, that's the truth. Absolutely. That's why we love you. And
Oh,
this is just seriously, though, the when question. And what I really thought about was people need to have a historical perspective of this. All right. And the the thing about it is that uh, what we should do is we need to go back in time when we want to take a look at this. We want to answer this when question. And there is a passage from the Colburn Bible, which we publish. And this was the one passage in the book that was responsible for the secret, the priests, the Celtic priests who have kept this manuscript safe for centuries. And this was the one passage that got them to reveal it because they understood that this is the time. And again, remember, the universe is not unfolding at the speed of Twitter. Okay, it goes at its own pace. So this is from the book of manuscripts. The manuscripts, there are 11 books in the Colburn Bible, and the book of manuscripts is the fifth book, and it was written by the ancient Egyptians about the same time as Moses was leading the Hebrews through the Sinai, and the five books of Moses were being written. And this was originally the Colburn in its first iteration was an Egyptian text called the Great Book, which was a very accurate description. It was about the size of a modern printed encyclopedia. It was huge, like 20 Bibles put together. And even what we have today is the size of the King James Bible. It's huge, it's massive. It's very laconic, in other words, very few words to express very large concepts. And the Egyptians, this was after Exodus, which was the last flyby Planet X system. And the ancient Egyptians wanted to understand how it was a scrappy little Hebrew god could kick the tuchus on their pantheon of mighty Egyptian gods. So they were trying to find not the Hebrew god, but the god that was a greater god than the Hebrew god. Didn't work out, but they did pull in folklore and history from throughout their entire trading realm, and they were trading as far as Great Britain to the north and South Africa to the south, vis-a-vis the ancient Phoenicians, who at that time were amazing, amazing people. They were navigating by the stars while everybody else was following the coastlines. Gave them a huge, huge advantage. So, what I want to do is I want to read for you and let me just change this a little bit to manuscripts, and I actually want to start with manuscripts 3:7. We're going to do manuscripts 3:7, manuscripts 3:8, and manuscripts 3:9. I'm going to read these passages from the Colburn Bible, and you can learn more about that at Colburn, KOLBRIN.com. Manuscripts 3:7. Thus it was in the days of heavenly wrath which have gone, and thus it will be in the days of doom when it comes again. The times of its coming and going are known unto the wise. There are the signs and times which shall precede the destroyer's return. Before I go on, there are many, many names for Planet X. Planet X, Nibiru, Hercolobus, the Red Dragon, the Red Planet, Frightener, was which the Celts used to call it. The ancient Egyptians and the ancient Hebrews called it the Destroyer. So let me back up. The times of its coming and going are known unto the wise. These are the signs and times which shall precede the destroyer's return. 110 generations shall pass into the west, and nations will rise and fall. Men will fly in the air as birds and swim in the seas as fishes. So until the green thing happens and we're going to England on a very, very long bridge, we're going to take airplanes. And if we're swimming in the seas like fishes, it's because we've got scuba gear. They could foresee this in those ancient times, 3,600 years ago. So again, men
Mm,
will fly in the air as birds and swim in the seas as fishes. You know, I'm sure you've come across Mother Shipton. It kind of reminds you of
yes,
Mother Shipton there.
absolutely. Yeah, it's exactly what she talks about.
Exactly. And Mother Shipton would have had no way to find this information. It was very heavily secreted at that time up in the north of Scotland. Um, Now, next it goes on. Men will talk peace with one another. Hypocrisy and deceit shall have their day. Women will be as men, and men as women. Passion will be a plaything of man. I think that's, that really hits a little close to home, doesn't it?
Yeah, especially all the stuff I've been seeing on Facebook, these guys wearing mini skirts and bras and it's sort of, you just nailed it right on the head. The best thing I like about it is the wise will know. Well, we know. Are we the wise?
Ah, yes, this is a good question. Are we the wise? I think the wise could be the aware. And
Exactly.
very well, those of us that are perceptive, wisdom is perception. And a lot of people think that you know, the wise people have a lot of wisdom are pontificating and saying important things. Now, we got books full of pontificating important things. What makes people appear wise is their listening skills.
Hmm.
They listen, they're active listeners, they're very good at listening, and they ask confirming questions. And when they say something, it's laconic. In other words, very few words to express a very big concept. And so Wisdom is about perception. So you very well, we could be the wise, okay?
Oh,
And
okay.
we could be the wise and the stoned as well.
Well, I just posted something on my Facebook page. It said, those that tell the truth live a very lonely life. And boy, ain't that the truth. Because
Really?
people don't want to be around truthers, do they?
No, they don't. And um, people want to hear what they want to hear, and they're interested. And so, a lot of times, I mean, I get this, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? Because that's it. They look at their credit card billing cycle and they go, if it's going to happen on that day, I'll max the cards the day before. And then I'm going to hang MasterCard and Visa out to dry when the whole thing goes to hell. And it's this is all, you're dealing in small slices of time that are between tick and tock when you're thinking about, I
Yeah,
want these exact dates. And the only people that know exactly when it's going to be, that's the government. Because in 1983, when they spotted the system with IRAS, they they did a fake cover up that they said, well, the cooling system for the camera failed. So that would explain why they were sending navigation signals to it. Cooling signal The cooling system, nothing failed. It was perfectly good. IRAS was perfectly good. What happened was when it spotted the brown dwarf, which stuck out like a sore thumb, and they wanted to monitor it for as long as they could because they would want to develop something astronomers call an ephemeris. It's like a train schedule. It's going to be here at a certain time, then there at a certain time, then there at a certain time. That's an ephemeris. You can accurately plot how it's going to get there. The government has the ephemeris. We don't. So is it coming? Yeah, I saw it with my own two eyes in September of last year. But that being said, it doesn't matter to anybody that I saw it because what's going to matter is when they see it with their own two eyes. And then the question is going to
absolutely.
be, how prepared are you going to be for that?
What,
And
what Marshall, what did Ed Dane see?
Ed Dames is, Ed Dames, I like Ed, and I've met him. I was one of his classes on remote viewing, which was actually gifted me by an anonymous donor. Those are very expensive classes, very well worth it. I strongly advise it. People take Ed's classes so that they can figure out you know, where to hunker down, where to build the bunker, where to go.
Right.
Um, and that's actually in the classes itself. You're going to learn that, and of course, then they can go to much greater levels of specificity, and then you're going into fee services. But I remember after the first session in the morning, at that time, I brought out my book, Being In for the Species, and I went up to Ed. He was up at the front. Everybody was out refreshing. And I just walked up and he recognized me. And I said, hey, I'm Marshall. And he said, oh, yeah, I hear your name a lot. And I told him, I said, I had your 2004 kill shot video that you first did. And I said, you nailed it. You got it on the head. And he wasn't happy to hear that. And I wasn't happy to say it. And he just said, that's not good news. And because I'm confirming what he was saying. Now, what is Ed Dames seeing? Ed Dames is seeing what he calls the kill shot. And he's had to, over the years, I think he just got pressed on too many issues. And so some of the details go, but from that 2004, At frankly, in 2004, it was way ahead of me on the research, and we were pretty well along by 2004. So the kill shot that he talks about is actually what we call a solar sprite or cosmic lightning. And this is the interaction that is going to occur between the two suns. But when the Planet X system comes over the sun and then going back down into its point of aphelion, its furthest distance to the sun, it's going to pass between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. And at that point, we're right in the middle of a spark plug, okay? And it could trigger a solar sprite cosmic lightning. It could hit the Earth and do immense amount of damage. Now, to put it in perspective, they say that the Grand Canyon is the result of water erosion. And I mean, that never really passed the smell test with me. I've flown through the Grand Canyon. It's like water erosion. Right, right. But if we go to Mars, the largest canyon in the solar system is Val Marineris. It's massive. And that is what happens when you get a solar sprite that hits you. And it's enough that it can literally rip the atmosphere off of a planet, freeze what's left of your oceans that don't go out into space. It can do a lot of damage. And that's what he is seeing is a solar sprite. And what was interesting was he said that it will occur when a large planet passes between the Earth and Venus. Well, that's exactly what I talk about in my book, Being in It for the Species. All right. And that we have this, that is going to be Nibiru passing between us because it's the outermost major planet in that system. So that's what he's talking about. And I think that a lot of what he is saying is really on the money. He just has different terms that he uses to explain it for whatever his reason is. But a rose by any other color is still a rose, and he's got it right. So let me get on to manuscripts 3-7 with that.
Okay.
Solar sprite, and now that then that's not brandy and sprite.
You're getting to
uh,
know me too well.
oh yeah, oh yeah, let's party. And I look forward to it. If I ever get to Hawaii, oh man, we got to go party. And so, manuscripts 3-7. I want to read this, and then I'm going to come back and we're go verse by verse by verse because you have to. Now the thing is, and while I'm reading it to you, understand that the way this is, the Colburn Bible is written, and this is a compilation of many manuscripts. We estimated there could be as many as 200 different original authors in the book, just by the stylistic issues and time and where they were at and what they were talking about. Now, manuscripts 3-7, this is from the ancient Egyptians, written at about the same time as the 5 books of Moses. Thus it was in the days of heavenly wrath, which have gone. And, oh, excuse me, we did that one that was 3-7. Manuscripts 3-8. I started partying a little too soon. Anyway, manuscripts 3-8 from the Colburn Bible. A nation of soothsayers shall rise and fall, and their tongue shall be the speech learned. A nation of lawgivers shall rule the earth and pass away into nothingness. One
Yay.
worship will pass into the 4 quarters of the earth, talking peace and bringing war. A nation of the seas will be greater than any other, but will be as an apple rotten at the core and will not endure. A nation of traders will destroy men with wonders, and it shall have its day. Then shall the high strive with the low, the north with the south, the east with the west, and the light with the darkness. Men shall be divided by their races, and the children will be born as strangers among them. Brothers shall strive with brother, and husband with wife. Fathers will no longer instruct their sons, and the sons will be wayward. Women will become the common property of men, and will no longer be held in regard and respect. So now let's go verse by verse, because this is linear. Don't jump back and forth. You don't go to the first verse and say, well, that's a little later. And you go to the next verse and say, well, that was much older and it's allegorical and all that. No, that's not the way these people wrote the Colburn. And they were very, very precise. So I'm going to start first verse from manuscripts 3:8. A nation of soothsayers shall rise and fall, and their tongue shall be the speech learned. Now, the term soothsayer or sooth is 14th century Old English for truth. So, a nation of soothsayers, truth speakers, shall rise and fall, and their tongue shall be the speech learned. This is the Roman Empire. And today it is a dead language, but Roman language is still a speech learned. Interestingly enough, when the manuscript for the Colburn was in Great Britain during the time of the Roman conquest, uh, it was taught to their young, their children were taught in the, at that time, which was still called the Great Book. So the first verse talks about ancient Rome. Now, second verse, a nation of lawgivers shall rule the earth and pass away into nothingness. This is Great Britain. This is England. Rule Britannia. And all of our modern law in the West comes from Great Britain when we're talking about the Magna Carta and then common law and the, our courts, everything really stems from English law. And so the English were amazing lawgivers. And they are slipping away, okay,
Mhm.
and will eventually pass into nothingness. Then the next verse is one warship will pass into the four quarters of the earth, talking peace and bringing war. Judeo Christian ethic is about love. Peace is Islam. And Islam has most certainly passed into the four quarters of the earth. And Islam most certainly has spoken peace, but yet has brought war. This is just a fact of what's going on. You can have all your sensibilities inflamed as you wish, but this is just the fact of history as we're living it. Now, the next one is very interesting. This next verse, I'm going to read it, is the exact reason why the Colburn was finally released and made public by the ancient priests, Celtic priests, who for many generations kept it secret and safe and translated it through the language iterations. And all of that is described in the front matter of the book. And that verse is a nation of the seas will be greater than any other, but will be as an apple rotten at the core and will not endure. Let me read that again. A nation of the seas will be greater than any other, but will be as an apple rotten at the core and will not endure. What nation do you think, what empire do you think they're talking about here?
I hate to say it, but I think it's us.
Well, that's interesting. You're one step away from us, actually. And you know something? Initially, when I first read it, and I'm thinking back in the years, I thought about that. However, a nation of the seas will be greater than any other. The fact is that During the Cold War in the Soviet Union, the Soviet Union had the largest navy in the history of humankind. It was a third larger than our own. It was massive. Our navy is based on we're aviation, so we have large carriers, and they're projecting air power with a lot of ships. So we don't have as many numbers, but the numbers we have are pretty big and sophisticated. On the other hand, the Soviets had a very different war strategy. Instead of carriers, they used missile cruisers and ballistic missile submarines, which actually, given what's coming, puts them in an infinitely better position to fight and win a war, because when all your volcanoes are popping off and putting ash in the sky, you can't fly. Jet engines and ash do not mix well.
Oh, yeah.
However, yeah, it doesn't, that's it. You're going to bring them down. On the other hand, missiles, that's it. They're just going to plow right through it. It's not going to slow them down. The Russians had supersonic cruise missiles. Ours are subsonic. And they had hypercavitating torpedoes that you could go underwater at speeds well over 450 miles an hour. That's a pretty fast torpedo. And
He just
so,
issued a warning to us.
oh yeah,
Putin
yeah,
did,
yeah.
saying
So,
that he hopes the United States isn't, what was it, thinking of double crossing him or something like that because he's
right,
well prepared. Yeah, and I'm like, whoa.
they are. They are. It's a small bear with an 800-pound arm, and they can really do some damage. They've got excellent weaponry. And so a nation of the seas will be greater than any other, which the Soviet Union was. It will be as an apple rotten at the core and will not endure. And that's exactly what happened. The Soviet Union was what they call painted rust. They put so much money into their military, they didn't, the infrastructure just all was going south. And, you know, the, oh, hold on a second. I'm in an interview, sorry. And should have turned off my phone. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
So,
I'll forgive you
um,
this time.
okay, next time it's a case of rum, right? Okay.
No, you'll always be my sweetie.
Oh, thank you, thank you. We'll have to go snorkeling at two steps together. That'll be fun. And so a they were rotten at the core and they just collapsed. They didn't do well. But a nation of traitors, here's the next verse, a nation of traitors will destroy men with wonders, and it shall have its day. Now, you were off by one verse, darling. That's us. A nation of traitors. We are a trade nation. That's how we established the English built a great fighting navy, but we had a merchant marine that was second to none. And our Yankee clippers, which were magnificent ships, like the Cuddy Sark that everyone likes to build models of, used hemp, by the way, for the sails. Hemp was used extensively back then. And our founding fathers grew hemp. But anyway, a nation
Well,
of
I know how to
traitors.
grow that.
Oh, good.
I can grow that
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah. Yeah,
that's useful.
I'll get out there a weaving and a bobbing.
There you go. There you go. All right. And and I mean, whoa, hemp is it's just one of the most versatile plants ever. And so the thing is, we're a nation of traders. Now we destroy men with wonders. My God, look at what we're doing with the drones and all the technology. We're just tearing hell out of stuff, and it shall have its day. And that's us. We've had our
Yeah.
day. Now, here's the important thing. We went, the first verse was Rome, the second verse was Great Britain, the third verse was Islam, the fourth verse was the Soviet Union, and the fifth verse is us. And there's no more verses about civilizations, empires, or faiths. That's it. We're the last. We're the last. There's not going to be any big new guys after us. All right. And then we get into the rest of it. Then shall the high strive with the low. Look at wage disparities. Look what's, we have a lot of angry people because you've got just a 2% of the people holding most of the wealth. And it is very heavily skewed. So the high is striving with the low, the north with the south, especially if we look and see what's happening with our southern border, the east with the west, and the light with the darkness. And so men shall be divided by their races, and the children shall be born as strangers amongst them, which I believe is referring to in vitro fertilization and insemination. And so um, folks are having babies, but you know they are, they don't, they're strangers. Brother shall strive with brother, and husband with wife. Yeah, we look at that, we argue. Look at our rate of failure on marriages. It's absolutely heartbreaking. Fathers will no longer instruct their sons, and the sons will be wayward. And I think that's pretty fair. But it's this last verse in 3:8 that personally, for me, breaks my heart. Women will become the common property of men and will no longer be held in regard and respect. And when we look at everything that's going on right now, the white slave trade, women forced into prostitution, um, just all of these horrible crimes against women and children, uh, this really goes to it. And so we have this terrible sickness in our time as what we're doing, that women are now property, and that's what it is. Look what with ISIS, they were selling off women that they'd go in, hit a Kurdish village, take the women, sell them off for sex slaves.
Yeah, and
And
and they want to bring that to the United States. They want Islamic law in our country, which and which just totally makes women nothing but slaves.
that's right. And so yeah, then that brings me to manuscript 3:9, and I want to read this because this is the bada bing. Then men will be ill at ease in their hearts, and they will seek they know not what, and uncertainty and doubt will trouble them. They will possess great riches, but be poor in spirit. Then will the heavens tremble and the earth move. Men will quake in fear, and while terror walks with them, the heralds of doom will appear. They will come softly as thieves to the tombs. Men will not know them for what they are. Men will be deceived. The hour of the destroyer is at hand. I have just read to you where we are exactly at this moment in time, as told to us by a prophecy written by the ancient Egyptians 3,600 years ago, lunar years, I would add. And then here is the one passage in the Colburn that over the years I have read this to myself time and time and time again, and it has always given me great strength to carry forward. Manuscripts 310. In those days, men will have the great book before them. Remember, the great book is what the Colburn was originally titled when the Egyptians were writing it. Wisdom will be revealed. We're trying to do that now. Pass the brandy, please. And the few will be gathered for the stand. It is the hour of trial. The dauntless ones will survive. The stout hearted will not go down to destruction. Now, this is the verse that these words are just, they're etched in my thoughts, in my soul, in my spirit. The dauntless ones will survive. The stout hearted will not go down to destruction. So, what they're telling us is you guys can survive it, but it's not going to be an easy thing for wusses, okay, and snowflakes. If you're busy running around in denial and you don't want to hear it because you have cognitive dissonance and all of that, and oh my gosh, you say these fatalistic things like, well, if this is really going to happen, I want to be at ground zero and I want to die at ground zero. I want to be one of the first to go. And what I want to see is when you're standing there in the middle of the street and you're seeing a wall of water from a tsunami coming at you, are you going to stand there in the middle of the street and announce proudly to everyone, I said this is how I'm going to die. And I'm going to show everybody that I am an idiot of my own word. I'm going to die like this. I'm going to drown like a rat. Watch me do it, and then you're going to know how a real person dies a pointless death. Or, or are you going to be kicking people out of the way as you're going up the stairs? More likely, you're going to be stepping all over people to get up on the stairs. When the Consta Concordia in 2012, when it went aground and the ship rolled on its side, and they were really worried that thing was just going to slide off the ledge and go deep, and it very well could have. And the ship was rolled on its side, and they threw rope ladders over so people could get down the side of the ship, actually crawling down over the hull that had been under the water. It was now exposed to the rescue boats below. Well, there were multiple news accounts of grown men pushing women and children out of the way so they could get to the rescue boats first.
And the captain too. He
Yeah,
abandoned that ship and left everybody hanging. It was like, hey,
yeah.
every man for himself here. Marshall, I one part you talked about was the division between man and woman. And I just have to say that that's going to be the biggest downfall for anybody who thinks they're going to survive. If they cannot have a good woman there to comfort them and help them heal and help them be strong through this, they may as well give it up because there's no point.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty basic there, bad baby. How are we going to survive a 10-year tribulation without somebody to make a honeydew list?
Well, I mean, a good marriage is always based on, when hard times come along, the two help each other to get through it. And
Exactly.
in order to get through this, you're going to need the two, not division. You need
Absolutely.
togetherness.
And that's what I've always said is that, this is something that we have to face this as co-equals. And and I'm not talking about in this modern angry, the Me Too thing. And, I remember seeing the Gillette promo that they did, the guys with their arms crossed, and a row of guys standing in front of their Weber grills, kind of like "Ruh, ruh, 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 ruh," and real gumpy guys. And I'm just looking at that, and I've always liked Weber grills, and I always was buying Gillette blades. And I looked at that and I went, Weber just makes a great product. These guys are telling me if I like to cook on my Weber, I'm a testosterone driven slime ball from hell. Time to buy another brand of razors. And
You
so
know,
I did.
and
I took what was left of my Gillette razors and I threw it all away, even the good blades, the unused blades. I just threw it all away. I never went out and never let another Gillette product touch my face.
well, how
And
many marriages are failing right now, Marshall, because
oh
women are
yeah,
making much money is the man, and then they decide, well, my money's mine, yours is yours. I want separate bank accounts. That isn't a marriage. That's, division.
and the strange thing is that when men were asking for that prenuptials and all that, it was like you really don't love me and all of that. Um, it it goes that way. It's difficult. I was reading an article and it said that uh, people are holding off to get married because the men can't afford it. They're not making enough money. They can't attract spouses because even if the woman is more successful than the man financially, you still have the carryover prejudice that the man has to be more economically successful than the woman.
And both of
And
them are ignorant because that isn't what a marriage is. A marriage is love. It has nothing to do with money.
exactly,
It has to do
exactly,
with how much you love that person and that no matter what you go through, you'll take care of that person.
exactly. And I think we're going to see this. And also, right now, I'm working on my next book, which is Perpetual Genesis, a a survival philosophy for future communities. What I do is I'm going into the future because our own government has told us when the grid collapses, 9 out of 10 Americans are going to die. Why is that? Well, 100 years ago, there were 60 million Americans, and every one of them knew how to live without electricity. Today, we don't. And
Yeah,
so, and everything in our society is based around the grid. So when the grid fails, you're not going to have water coming out of your tap. Your toilets aren't going to flush. Nothing's going to work because
exactly.
everything, toilets, you know, and sinks, and people don't think water needs electricity. Yeah, water needs electricity in the modern world with infrastructure. Our
Yeah.
infrastructure is going to fail, and this
One
is
of the
going to
things I
change
wanted
the
to
whole
ask
nature
you,
of everything.
Marshall, is I noticed that generators are blowing up. They're not really reporting it, but a lot of them are blowing up. They're burning up, exploding. And is this because we're getting closer?
Well, no, it's because people are using them much more. They're using them continuously. A lot of these generators that you're going to buy for a few $100s
Oh, no,
are
no, I'm
really
talking about grid. I'm talking about the
all
grid.
about grids. We are going to have grids failing. It could be any number of things that cause it. Um, One of the things that's really disappointing is that it would only, for about the price of building the wall that Trump wants to build,
Yeah,
we could protect the grid from EMP attacks.
yeah.
And right now, the energy industry is spending vast amounts of money on K Street lobbyists to prevent that from happening because they're a self-regulated industry and they don't want the government getting into their regulation mix at all. It doesn't matter why. And they don't care about EMP protection. They don't want to spend the money. They want to declare the profits. And the fact that people are going to die. There's a book, 1 Second After by Forsyth, uh, that Newt Gingrich wrote the forward for.
I know that
You read
book.
that. Yeah, I mean, you read that book, it's really powerful. And
Yeah. And he
when,
gave it to Congress, you know. He
yeah,
gave
oh,
that
and
book to everybody in Congress. And do you think they care? No.
no, but they read it. They read it, and what
Yeah,
happened was,
well,
he, as literally what happened was, he's going, and every time he stuck a book in someone's hand, a congressman or a senator, guess what? A lobbyist from K Street was coming right behind with going, here, Hawaii, and this and that, and you can go see Cats on Broadway. I mean, they're bribing him,
yeah.
putting huge amounts of money. So he tried to, and there were folks that were really trying to make it work out, and so it
Well,
failed,
I
and
got a
a
good
lot of
idea.
people are going to
Let's
die.
just let's just bust Hillary and her old man and all these criminals that have broken the law, crimes against the United States, and take their wealth and fix everything. We'll fix the grid, we'll fix the infrastructure. Hey, I got an answer. You know, let's round them up, paycheck and
Yeah, well,
all.
the people who are following Q are hoping that's exactly what's going to happen. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out, but um,
Do you
realistically,
think that's why Alexa is laughing at night?
the well, hard to say. It's a good question, but overall, I think what we have is, we have time right now to prepare and to think about it, and that's another thing. I mean, a lot of folks, when I ask them, I say, "What have you done to prepare?" and they write back and they go, "Well, I got a box of something at Costco." All right,
Last
and
me a week or two.
right,
I don't
and
have any gardening tools. I don't have any seeds. I don't have any way to purify water. I don't have any way to bury my doo doo when I'm done. You know, I just think I don't even got an extra bar of soap.
they don't have anything. But even if you have all that stuff, is it's really just a buffer, and that's what you have to really see this stuff as, is it's a buffer. It's going to help you, but what it's really going to boil down to, and what my next book's really about, is it's going to take families to survive this. We have to have a focus on families, and that for me is what's really important. And uh, and also the nature of things are going to change. One of the things in the book that I'll be talking about is a concept called line marriages. And this is not a new concept. It was developed in the 60s by Robert A. Heinlein, the science fiction author, in a book called Moon is a Harsh Mistress. And it's different from other types of marriages. It starts out a little bit as a clan, but what it is a situation where you start with a founding couple, and then more husbands and wives join the family, the line family, and they're not looking for people from within their genetic realm, if you will, but it's always bringing in fresh DNA, because after things settle down, for those who do survive, uh, life is going to be shorter and it's going to be hard. And the reason why is industrial pollution, radiation. Uh, People are going to be dying of cancers in prodigious numbers, the survivors, because of all of the industrial accidents, the fracking, the nuclear plants, all of this. And it's going to take a couple of centuries for that to work its way out. And so those future survivors are going to say, what we have to have is, we have if we create a line marriage, it's a pooling of resources for the purpose of managing your assets and raising children, and for continuity of progeny and companionship. And you know, it's an interesting thing playing with this idea of line marriages, and I'm still working on the concept as it would be portrayed in the book. But this is the kind of thing people are going to have to do. And they go, well, wow, that's, if you're a wife and you have three husbands, or you're a guy and you have two wives, or whatever, you're in a group like that. Uh, that's awkward. No, if you think about it, you're going to have times where you could lose a lot of people. Women will be dying of childbirth, but men are going to be dying a lot of violent deaths because they're the ones that will be, principally, there will be women who will be guardians, but principally this will be a male role. And if there's going to be predators or tyrants that want to take what you have as a community, they're going to kill the men and then take the women and the children as sex slaves and chattels and sell them off. So you could have a line marriage where you defend your community against an attack like this and lose half of the men. And so what happens? All right. If you have line marriages, if there's a dramatic imbalance like that, you still have a basic infrastructure. You don't wind up with your community fractured into a bunch of widows and widowers and orphans. So you still have families that can replenish and bring in outside blood. And this is the kind of reality people are going to have. Uh, there's, and what will be important, absolutely important, is that we're going to have to respect each other, men and women, as co-equals. And this is not about economics and, my paycheck is bigger than your paycheck, or I still have a 30-year-old notion of victimhood that I want you to deal with. And on the other hand, it's not men who are grabbing everyone's ass because they can get away with it. This has got to be about respect and love and companionship and working together. And that's what it's going to take. This is going to be huge, profound changes. We could very well go into an enlightening golden age because of the amount of death and dying. People don't think of that. I think about it quite often, because when you are surrounded by death, your loved ones, people you know, people you're surviving with, you are seeing them die left and right. Because when 9 out of 10 people are dying, as our government tells us will be the case, you're going to have a lot of death. Well, with a lot of death is going to be shared death experiences, near death experiences, and out of body experiences. And when those are profound, people are forever changed. So, what is a profound out of body or near death experience? Uh, this will be where you will see yourself as an eternal being. And when you see yourself as an eternal being, there are going to be things that happen to you that no one's going to talk you out of. And I don't care how many dead animal skins they've nailed to the wall and how clever they think they are. You're going to know what you know. Now, the first thing that'll happen is when you have a profound experience. When I'm talking to people about near death experiences or shared death experiences, I'll ask a very simple question. Do you fear death? And anything other than a very instantaneous no. That's it. I said, do you fear death? No. Do you fear death? No. If I hear, well, did I be and I'm oh and there's that and this guy said that and this that, you're full of crap. You didn't have this experience. Okay? So number one, you lose your fear of death. Does that mean you want to die badly? Hell no, nobody does. Okay. I'm like anybody else. I'd like to go in my sleep. Thank you. All right. Now, the second thing that happens is that you realize reincarnation is the natural order of things. This is how it works, which flies in the face of Judeo Christian belief, which says, no, there is no reincarnation. Well, there is reincarnation. The majority of people on the planet believe it. I'm one
Yep.
of those as well because
Yep.
I've had this experience. Now, the third thing that happens when you have a profound experience is it completely changes the driving paradigm of your life. And we live in a world of acquisition. That's it. I mean, it's like if you want to understand us, go watch the Ferengi in Star Trek 9, Deep Space Nine. Okay, Quark's bar. That's it. The 99 rules of acquisition. That's it. What are the 99 rules of acquisition? It's okay to sell your mother into slavery as long as you get a good price. And literally, this is the kind of thinking
Jeez.
that goes with acquisition. Uh, what will happen is that when people have been profoundly changed this way, acquisition is no longer their paradigm. Their paradigm is harmony, harmony within themselves and all that is around them. And this is really, really important. And so you're going to have a lot of people having these profound, major near death, shared death, and out of body experiences, and they're profoundly changed. Doesn't happen to happen to everybody. You just need enough for a critical mass. Now, depending on who you talk to, 12% of the colonists in America participated in the revolution. Others will say 30%. But the bottom line is, even in the most generous, the vast majority of Americans, of the colonials during the War of Revolution, either sat on the sidelines and did nothing, or they collaborated with the British. So you don't need to have a majority to make a big change. We proved that with our revolution. And the same thing will happen. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to be profoundly affected. And this is going to create a hundredth monkey scenario. Now, hundredth monkey comes from back in the 50s when they were doing all the atomic bomb testing in the Pacific, because we basically, as a nation, were as dumb as a sack of hammers. And we created God knows how much kind of awful stuff, which, you know, the only ones that actually capitalized that on that were the Japanese. That, our American testing in the atolls created Godzilla.
Yeah.
That thing, right?
You know,
So,
I
uh,
actually had a man accidentally call me years ago. I'd say about 10 years ago. I had changed my phone number and I got his daughter's number. And he was in a nursing home and he was in World War II. And he kept calling me his daughter's name. And I said, no, this isn't your daughter. He said, I need to talk to you. I said, okay, I'll talk to you. And he told me that he was dying of cancer because they made him, when he was in the war, stand in a dugout and watch them set off bombs, and the radiation got him, he said.
that's
You
it.
know, and
I have a friend
basically,
here that's dying
what
from
were
Agent
they? They
Orange.
were guinea pigs, weren't they? They were
Huh?
guinea pigs.
Yeah, they were. They were. Now, who the hell
And
are
you
these
know,
people to
and he said,
decide
do you
this?
know how to find my daughter? I said, no, I don't know how to find your daughter. I just have her phone number because I changed my phone number. Do you know that man called me several times? I don't know. I think he passed away. But every time he called, he'd say, did you find my daughter yet? And I'd say, "No, I didn't find your daughter." He said, "Can I talk to you?" And I said, "Yeah." So he would call me and talk to me and tell me all about his suffering, basically, from having to watch those bombs go off.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm glad you were there for him and that you cared. Thank you for your service.
That's just how I am when I see someone who needs help. I go over there. It's funny because a lot of people in the area, not far from me, I'm not going to say where, but have tried to go and assist people, have been harmed. And I thought, God, I hope that doesn't change me because I've seen elderly people in their car in the parking lot, and I've gone and helped them. There was a man that I went walked by his car. It was like below zero, and there was one
Mhm.
of them drive carts with with the food in it and his cane, but there was nobody around. And I was like, "What the heck?" And I looked, and he was in his car. He was slumped over his wheel. I thought he was dead. And I knocked
Whoa.
on the window and said, "Sir, are you okay?" And he put his window down and he said, "Oh, I'm diabetic." And he said, "I thought I could make it home." He said, "I started getting sick." And I said, "Well, open your trunk and I'll put your stuff in your trunk and I'll move the cart." And then he got out and pinched my cheek and said I was a little sweetie pie. And and then he said, "If you ever need to go to the community living, I live over here. Tell him Frank sent you." And I said, "I don't think I'm ready for that yet." But I offered to follow him home. I asked him if he was okay to drive. He said, "Yeah." He said it was just around the corner. But I stayed with him until he was okay. I gave him something to eat, and he got himself together. And but I mean, something just told me when I looked at the cart that something wasn't right. And I've seen things like this several times and helped people. I helped some lady pulling a little cart in the middle below zero. I said, "You're not going to the bus stop with that, are you?" And she said, "No, I'm going to the next store." I go, "Well, where's that at?" She goes, "Half a mile down the road." I go, "You ain't going to make it down there." And it's funny, Marshall, because I have a four-wheel drive 3500 Dodge diesel pickup truck, and it's got a high instep. Well, I took her stuff and put it in the back seat and put her cart in the back of my truck, but she was such a little tiny thing she couldn't get up there, and I had to push on her butt to get her up in my truck.
Bad baby, why is it chicks dig big trucks?
Hey, honey, I've always been that way. Big trucks, big bucks. No, I don't know. I just like trucks. I do. Well, I
Yeah, I
drove
like
semi.
trucks. Got a truck. Love it. Yeah, I got a Nissan
I
Frontier.
drove semi for 4 years, so maybe that's it. I don't know.
Oh, well, yeah, yeah. Well, then now you're in a subcompact. But
Oh, but I mean, that's just the way it is, and that's how we have to be. I mean, it's so weird
yeah.
because a lot of my friends on Facebook, I have a lot of friends from China, and they
Uh-huh.
say to me, they say, "Bad baby, just think how the world would be if they had the same heart you have." And I thought, what a wonderful comment. What a
But
wonderful comment.
think about it again, manuscripts 310. The dauntless ones will survive. The stout-hearted will not go down to destruction. And let's actually, I want to take and the dauntless ones. So if we go look up, it's interesting with the translations and everything, but the definition of dauntless is incapable of being intimidated or subdued. Okay, so if we take the actual meaning of the word and the dauntless ones will survive, it says the dauntless ones will survive because they are incapable of being intimidated or subdued. And the stout-hearted, this is really beautiful. I love the definition of stout-hearted. Courageous, stubborn, having a stout heart or spirit. And so this is exactly what it takes. You have to be courageous, you have to be stubborn. And this is not a man thing, it's not a woman thing. This is a personal thing. This is you, or it's not you. And so the dauntless ones will survive. They will they will do everything that they need to do. And it's so important. When you were talking about that man and he was from World War II and what had happened to him, there's you have times in your life where you come across somebody and the meeting with them is brief, a day or maybe two at most, but they have a profound impact on your life. It's indelible. It's like the pleat in a pant. You can't iron it out. Always there. And for me, it was when I was a young man in college, and there was a fellow I saw who was blind, and his wife went with him everywhere, and they were together, and so beautiful, such a loving couple. And he had a big reel-to-reel portable tape recorder. And I mean, this thing is portable is about the best thing you can say for it. It was luggageable, really, probably weighed about 40 pounds. And he would go into classes, and he had his VA benefits, which he used, and he was taking notes with his reel-to-reel, and then he would go home and splice the relevant parts and study it. And he was on the dean's list. Very impressive. And so I was taking my degree path was in communications, and I went to the school paper, and they said, "Oh, that would be a good idea for a story. Go do it." So I went out and took pictures of him around campus, and then finally we went to his house, and I went into his little workshop, and it was absolutely amazing. Everything had its place. So neat and orderly. It was just amazing. You could eat off the floor. And I could see where he was splicing tapes and making reels and notes, and his wife was marking everything. And so I was asking him about his history, and he said, "Well," I said, "How did you lose your sight?" And he said, "Well, I was a young man. It was right after we landed in Normandy, and I was a motorcycle courier." And he said he was carrying messages on his motorcycle, and accidentally tripped over a Bouncing Betty German mine. Now, the Bouncing Betty German mine was a very nasty thing. It was really designed as a morale breaker because it would jump up about 3 feet into the air and then blow small shrapnel sideways. The goal was to literally blow men's genitals off. That was it. I mean, that's pretty freaky for a guy. You step, boom, mine goes off, and instead of you die, you wake up and you don't have guess what? So
God.
that's pretty bad. Now the mine blew and went up, and a piece of shrapnel struck him in the back of the neck to go blind. And as he explained it to me, and I just felt so sad for him because he was such a beautiful soul. This man was just such a beautiful soul, especially to see him with his wife, how tender they were with each other. It was just really, you look at that and you go, God, if I have a good enough life, maybe I could find someone and have that kind of relationship. And so I was, like you always do, you say, oh, modern science advances, things will happen, whatever. You always, look at the glass half full. And so I was saying, well, maybe they'll figure out how to get that out of your neck. You get your sight back. And he said, no, they can't do that. If they try and operate, I'll die. if they removed that piece of shrapnel. And he said, now the shrapnel's moving. And so the doctors are telling me that not only am I going to remain blind, but I'm going to go deaf as well.
Mm.
And when he said that, bad baby, I absolutely, it just devastated me. And I couldn't stop myself. In my entire life, I have never cried like that from before then or since. The tears literally were rivers coming down my cheeks. And I was struggling. With the two of us are sitting there facing each other, and I was struggling so hard that he didn't hear me sob or anything. Well, I mean, this is a man who lost his sight for many years, and what he could hear is, they're pretty amazing. And he knew I was just absolutely bawling like a baby. And at that moment, he leaned over and he tapped me on the knee very gently with a beautiful, kind smile. And he said, it's okay. It's okay. Winners never quit, and quitters never win.
There you go.
Bad baby, there have been times in my life when I just felt like just to hell with it, throw in the towel, admit defeat, stop struggling. And then I remember that day with him. His name was Harold Stark. I've never, that was the first day and the last day. That was.
Oh, we lost your sound. I don't know if you could hear me. Oh, come on. Can you hear me, Marshall? Oh, I know we're missing good stuff here, you guys. We lost you. We lost you. Can you hear me, Marshall? We lost your audio. Could someone type in the chat and tell Marshall we lost his audio?
Okay, you got me now?
Okay. Yeah, I lost you there for a while. Are you
Okay, where
back?
did you lose me?
You were just starting to tell us about when he said it's okay, and then after that, we pretty much lost you. You
Oh,
said that thinking about what he had gone through, and then we lost you there.
okay. Well, the you let's see. He was in the war. He was going deaf and all of that. You got that?
Yes.
Okay. So, getting back to the point is that this is the kind of grit and determination it's going to take. This is when I looked at Harold and his wife, it's really something. When I was growing up, to see the folks from the great generation, and you watch husband and wives walking hand in hand,
Yeah.
tender, with love. None of
Yeah.
this, fighting with each other and all of these artificial. We have so many artificial problems that we inject into relationships today. But this is what's going to happen. And the thing is that as we go into the tribulation, and it's going to last a period of years, you're going to have to pull together with other people.
Yeah.
And this is what is going to be essential. And it's you're going to have to be someone who's rock steady and solid, dependable. If so, that's the reason why I like to tell people preparation is not a place, a time, or a thing. It's a state of mind. That's what it is. Preparation is a state of mind. And so you have to have basic skills and know how to apply those skills. But you're also in the process of thinking through those things. If we go out to Costco, buy a 5 pound bucket, 5 gallon bucket of stuff, and that's it. Boy, isn't that, boy, that was easy. Oh, we survived. We don't have to worry about it. That's it. We got it. Of course, then again, what happens if you're 200 miles away visiting grandma and all of a
You
sudden,
can't get to the bucket.
that's right, the kimchi, the, that's it, the kimchi hits the fan. And that's that's the main thing. And that's so right now, my major effort right now is really trying to do things that are going to help the stout hearted, the people that are taking this seriously, and they understand that they have to be mentally prepared for what's going on and they need important skills. And the ability to know how to grow herbs, make medicinals, garden, all of these basic skills that were quite common for Americans 100 years ago. I mean, we're clueless today. But we also have modern advantages that didn't have back then that were widely available. That's the reason why right now my main push is on my book, Radio Free Earth, because one of the things that I've learned doing interviews about two-way communications that really surprised me. See, now, as a as someone who's a ham operator, it was a given for me that in a tribulation, the worst people are going to have the best radios. Tyrants and predators are going to have wonderful two-way radios. They're going to be able to sit there, stand off at a distance, observe you very comfortably. And what are you going to have if you haven't prepared? What, road flares and red bandanas? That's it? That's how you're going to communicate? If that's all you got, road flares and red bandanas and other clever little ha ha placebo ideas, they're going to take you whenever they want. And
Yeah.
when they do, they're going to come out of nowhere. So, if you're sitting here going, well, two-way radios, that's for old farts tinkering around in their garages and trying to look clever. I don't need it. I got a smartphone, blah, blah, blah. I'm smart. I'm clever. Your smartphone goes away the minute the grid goes away. And all
Yeah.
your smartphone's going to be good for after that is as a portable camera or as a grave marker. And I just was really stunned that for me it was so natural to think, yeah, the worst people are going to have the best radios. And the good people are going, no, this is old farts in the garage. No, it's not old farts in the garage. It's the heartbeat of freedom. You're going to, everybody says, let's get guns. What the hell is it? Everybody, the first thing is we got to get guns. And it's like, we don't want to get cheap guns. We want to get, you know, this is it, the super assault rifle with the scope and the barrel and the this and that and the whole 9 yards. And it's $3,000. Well, if it's just a handful of you and it's your 12-year-old is on guard duty with your $3,000 AR-15 and falls asleep, how are you going to know? You're going to know when you wake up to hear your women and children being raped and butchered while they hold you down, so you have to watch that. That's the real reality of it. And so people just will not think forward in time as to what is life going to be like in that period. And the total answer is going completely back to solutions of the past is going to be necessary. But we have wonderful technology that we can use and move forward and help us to be confident in doing what we're doing and pulling together in communities. So that's the reason why I wrote Radio Free Earth with Dwayne Brayton, because it teaches people how to use all the different types of amateur and two-way radios and use them effectively. And it's how much does it cost? Well, let me put it to you this way. Uh, my training, I've trained for hundreds of hours with FEMA, and my last class was communications unit leader, which I was certified to help in multi-jurisdictional incidents where, let's say, you have a major fire or disaster and you're bringing in police departments and fire departments and paramedics from everywhere. That's it, all come. All right. Well, they all have different kinds of radios, and you have to be able to get them where they're talking to each other. And that's what a communications unit leader essentially is doing. It's the principal role for what I was trained for by FEMA. Well, right now, if you look at the new digital radios that they're using, which have voice encryption and trunking and all kinds of sexy stuff, one portable radio, you have a SWAT team. Let's say you have a SWAT team of 10 men and women. Each one of them has a radio. Each of them will be equipped with a radio that itself costs $10,000. That SWAT team, the radios alone, you're looking at a $100,000 investment, plus, plus, plus. So when I'm talking about a community of 100 to 150 people, and that's ideal for survival, do you need to spend $100,000 for radios? No. I mean, if you have to go on a bargain basement, you can equip as many people as you can with inexpensive radios that are going to be reliable for the cost of one radio that a SWAT team guy is going to have, and much less for half of that maybe. So there is so much that can be done. It gives you so much of an advantage. And if you're being surveilled at a distance by people who have two-way communications capability, and you're able to monitor their traffic, and you're able to surveil them just the same way, you're a hard target. And they're going to move on, and they're going to go find somebody that is stupid enough to have nothing more than road flares and red bandanas.
Yeah.
That's the soft target. You're going to be
Marshall,
capable.
you're in Arizona. Am I correct? You're in Arizona?
Right now, I'm in California,
Oh,
Grass
you're
Valley.
in California?
Right.
Okay. Um, my question is about the snow, the snow that's going across the United States. It
Right.
seems like this year, all of the extreme weather that usually goes, the jet stream goes across, Michigan, is going below us, and these storms are extreme. And the snow in Las Vegas and Arizona and all that, is that happening because our planet has tipped?
No,
W-
geoengineering.
Is that what it is? The geoengineering?
Yeah, they moved the jet stream.
Okay. All right. Because, I was thinking we were wobbling because,
No,
1 minute it's 40 degrees, then it's 20 degrees, then it's 40 degrees, then it's 20 degrees. And, the snow, the storms and the flooding and the mudslides and all that, it's just getting worse and worse and worse. I thought this was possibly the birth pains of what's coming on.
no, this is what they're doing is very simply put, uh, the whole point of chemtrail spraying, and or it's supposed to be called, the people that are doing it don't let you use your own verbiage. They control the verbiage so they can kill the conversation. And so instead of saying chemtrailing, which is that really describes what they're doing. They're chemtrailing. You have to have geoengineering, aerosol spraying, and all of these other fancy la-di-da terms that they've invented to help confuse everybody. So nobody really understands what in the hell's going on. Well, first off, what we do know is this stuff is really causing a lot of health crisis. We have bee colony collapse disorder. And the bee colonies are not only where we have farming, but bee colonies are collapsing in the middle of uh, forests, untouched forests.
Yeah, I saw on the Discovery Channel the other day that they did a study on the effects of the insects on our planet, and up not to every single insect, but majority of the insects, 75% of them are gone.
Yes, yeah. I mean, the insects are dying. Over half the coral reefs are dead. We are having a prodigious loss of life. Species, we are in the sixth major extinction, the Holocene extinction event. All right. This is happening. And the reason why is we have all of this luminance from the sun and its interaction with planet X, and it's causing uneven warming and patterns in the core of the planet. And that's resulting in something I call crustal undulation. And crustal undulation manifests itself with lots of earthquakes, earth trumpeting, which has really come back recently. There's a huge amount of earth trumpeting that's going on for
Now
the
that's
people
the
that
that's the
experience it.
sounds we're hearing in the sky,
That's right.
right?
That's the people, they just stand outside their apartments, their homes, and they're hearing, oh, and it's just where's this sound is coming from everywhere. And
Right.
it's a very unnatural sound. And this is the earth. This is part of the crustal undulation, the sinkholes, land tearing. Okay. We have in Africa where the continent is ripping. Okay. And all of these problems that are coming on. And so they're doing the chemical spraying. Now, they know that the chemtrail spraying is causing terrible health problems. By the year 2030, at the present rate, if it doesn't change, in the year 2030, half of all children will be autistic when they're born. Half.
That's
And
horrible.
look at the dementia, the Alzheimer's. This is at record level. We have, uh, with women and men, breast and prostate cancer in our reproductive organs. A lot of this is just coming from what is in the food, what they're spraying on us. This is environmentally induced by industry, by design. And the reason why the elites are doing the spraying is they're hedging. they understand that this is causing death, dying, and suffering. They also understand they have bunkers. And when things start going sideways and we see private jets and airplanes lined up on the tarmac in Denver International, like a bad case of the measles, you know, or a 13-year-old with acne, and the and we have all this aircraft acne over there. Well, that's the boarding call because that's their boarding port. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I heard, that they are all going to
And
rally to Denver and
that's
get
it.
into their bunkers and take their high-speed trains to wherever they are gonna go. And
Right.
absolutely, they have a total underground city because I had someone send me a video, oh, I'd say a couple years ago, where they
Mm,
followed a convoy of semi trucks. There were Walmart trucks, there were
mhm.
Coca-Cola, Pepsi, all these different CVS pharmacy. And you know where they all went? They went to a opening for underground highway.
Exactly. And that's it. And they're going in. um, there's and so that is if they're going underground, well, why would they care about modifying the weather? You
I
know?
have a theory about the Walmarts that all closed for the plumbing. I think that though
Uh,
they just took all that stuff and moved it into a store underground.
well, the thing of it is that Walmart, if you're an army commander and they set you up, Walmarts are now the new fixed operating bases, the forward operating bases. And the you'll be able to walk right into that Walmart office, sit down where the store manager sits, and you can order airstrikes and anything you want. The Walmart
Right.
system is tied in
Well,
with Department of Defense.
right. I understand that, but I mean, what did they do with all the stuff? I think they moved all that stuff into a Walmart underground. It's like, hey, we'll set this up as a command center or a FEMA camp or whatever. We'll put the barbed wire up and the towers and all that, and and we'll just take all that stuff and we'll take all that stuff and put it in a Walmart underground for us. That's what I think
Well,
they did
there's
with all the stuff.
a lot of it. It's hard to say what they've done with it, and they stockpile it, and then after they finish with it, they move it into another store. The stuff that the elites are really looking for. And of course, there's a lot of these things that they can take inventory from the Walmarts um, because what the elites are really looking for, the reason for the chemtrail spraying is they're trying to prevent radiation from getting into the core of the planet because of the sun getting brighter. The elites, the last thing they want to do is after we've planet X passes by and the tribulation is settling down and they can come to the surface, the last thing they want to do is come to the surface and find Earth is turned into another Venus or a Mars. Okay. So the spraying right now is hedging so that when they return to the surface, that the biosphere of the planet still has enough resiliency to regenerate itself. They're not thinking about saving us. Now, all of these Kmart, Walmart and all this stuff that they're doing, well, they're going to, and I write about this in my books. If you read Being in It for the Species, Surviving the Planet X Tribulation, I write the books and I'm trying to get people to get into a mindset of understanding what's happening so that they get out of this naive consumer satisfaction thing of, I bought a bucket, I'm good. You know? No, you buy a bucket, you got a bucket. That's it. and the food is useless. The best thing you could do is throw the food away and use the bucket to take a crap. But the yeah, I'm serious.
I know it's just the way you put it.
You
Oh,
know,
okay, you struck my funny bone there.
hey, you go, hey, you know, bad baby. You know what civilization is, darling? Civilization's a warm place to take a crap.
Well, as long as you got your shovel and you can dig yourself an outhouse, you
That's
know,
it.
you
But that's
there you go.
civilization. It's a warm
Use
place to
the
go to the bathroom.
take the bucket, pour some holes in it, throw a rope on it, throw it over a tree, fill it with water, and take a shower.
There you go. Now you're thinking like a survivor. The you got to work with what's in hand. And so it's getting the skills and thinking about it and contemplating it. But in the final analysis, the Coleman Bible is very, very right. The stout-hearted will not go down to destruction. You're going to have to be strong. You're going to have to be courageous. If you're kind of like, well, can we all get along? And it's like, I'm I'm a good person, and people are acting naive and foolish. Look, if this is you and you're listening to this interview, it's going to be a tribulation. 9 out of 10 people are dying, and if this is how you're thinking and you want to keep thinking that way, thank you for standing up to be one of the ones to fall. Because the 1 out of 10 that's stout hearted and says, hell no, winners never quit and quitters never win. They're the ones that are they're the ones that are going to prevail when you're sitting there and going, well, I paid taxes. This shouldn't happen to me. It will. It will. And
Yeah,
so you really have to seriously consider about it. And it's yeah, I've been people say, well, you've been talking about preparation for years. Yeah, well, preparation is not a place or time or a thing. It's a state of mind. And you know, survival in a tribulation is not OJT. It's not on the job training. You're either you're either going to know what to do, and that's going to give you a significant advantage, or you're going to be pretty damn lucky, or you will have been smart enough to be nice and kind to somebody who can think like a survivor.
yeah. Or you're
But
gonna
how many
perish.
you're going to perish. And so it's like, is that how you want to spend the last moments of your life going, damn, I heard this guy on the radio interview and I thought he was crazy at the time. And now I'm going to die, and I don't know why. All right.
Okay, quick question. Did you happen to see the Super Bowl halftime show where they had the meteor come in from outer space and strike the stage, and the lead singer came out of the hole, and then they started singing and all that? Did you happen to see that?
No, no. Boy, that sounds like
Yeah.
elitist entertainment.
Yeah, and I don't watch the Super Bowl stuff, but someone said, "Bad baby, you got to go into YouTube and put Super Bowl halftime show." And I
Uh,
thought, "Wow, are they trying to tell us something here? Are they like flaunting it in our face that, meteors are going to be coming in or what?"
no,
But I
actually,
find
they have to. They actually have to say something.
yeah, and the other thing is the
That's the
global
rules of the
awards.
road. Now, they do it in ways that the elites are explaining what's going to happen to us, but they explain it to people who are like them. They are perceptives. Now, 95% of the people who follow my work do so because of one thing: dreams, visions, and premonitions. They've had psychic experiences. That brings people to my work again and again and again. This is my audience. People
Hmm.
who've had dreams and they've seen meteor showers and they've seen tsunamis and they've seen earthquakes and they've seen these terrible things and vast amounts of dying. They don't know when, but they know they have seen this, and they know that this information is prophetic and serious information. They know that. And they're trying to find a way to understand it, to find context, a way to deal with it. And so when I am writing my books, I'm always in my mind thinking about somebody who's just gotten up, had a waking dream, has written it down, and now sitting there having a cup of coffee, trying to go, my God, what the hell did I just experience?
Yeah.
What's the meaning of all this? What's the meaning of all this? All right. And so the people who are having the dreams, the visions, the premonitions, and they are doing things. All right. Remember manuscripts 3:9. Then men will be at ease in their hearts. They will seek they know not what, and uncertainty and doubt will trouble them. They will possess great riches, but be poor in spirit. Poor in spirit. And that very much is the case. And
Okay, we have a guest that wants to ask you a question, but they haven't written it yet unless they plan on calling in.
okay,
If they're calling in, raise your hand and I will unmute you because we've got about 10-15 minutes left. So if you have a
okay,
question, go ahead and call in and or write it in the chat and we will try to answer your question. Oh, Rob on the phone. Okay. Are you 248, Rob? Is this you, Rob?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Hi
You got
there.
a
Hello
question?
there. Both. Yeah. Hello, Mr. Masters and Bad Baby. Hi, this is Robert in Waterford, Michigan. And just a short question. I know, Mr. Masters, you and me are both ham operators, correct? And we're licensed?
yes.
Yep. I'm a
Well, I mean,
KC8
what's your call
call
sign?
sign. KC8.
What's your
DDE.
call sign? What was that again?
KC8 Delta
Hmm.
Delta Echo.
Wow, you've been around a while.
Probably about 10 years.
All right.
I understand that, listening to your show tonight was very informative and good, but and I do have knowledge and understand that having Collins A-line equipment, Hallicrafters SX 71, 88, or whatever, 42, the older vacuum tube type radios, they may or may not survive this event. But what do you may not have the supplies or efficiency to operate them, right, electrically. So maybe it's a better idea to use, speaking for everybody else listening, maybe have a newer unit, current newer stuff, and put it in a Faraday cage, put it away, and then maybe you're able to use a long wire or ladder line with a balun. And if you're lucky to have a Johnson kilowatt matchbox, you're able to do only listening and get your information out there in the outside world. I don't think you want to transmit because that'll give away your location. Okay, go ahead.
Well, the thing is, if you're with giving away your location, you're transmitting. In the book, we're talking about you're going to spend most of your time listening.
Yes.
But, um, you know, if you're, the thing of it is, we're talking about using what's currently available. We're not talking about old tube type radios, which the tube radios are just really, really elegant.
They
Um,
are good.
but
Yep.
it's what you have to do. And in the book, for example, dealing with EMP, which is a real problem, 3 chapters of the book is devoted just to EMP strategies alone. And the fact is, there's no way, there's no absolute way to protect your equipment, but we have a lot of strategy in there for ways that you can mitigate damage. And
Uh-huh.
but the key thing is redundancy. So it's really about finding the strategy. Our strategy is uh, do it right the first time and buy smart. And so if you're buying radios, the radios we talk about in the book are real solid track record performers. They've been around for a while. Nothing digital, no digital radio. Digital radio is dead. It's all
Yeah.
analog RF. And we talk about the different strategies where you're able to power it, you have redundancy. Uh, there's a tremendous amount of stuff that you can do. I myself, I'm in ARES, Amateur Radio Emergency Services through ARRL, and I was involved with Washoe County Sheriff's Department doing that. Um, there's a lot of things that you can do so that you're going to be able to have good radios. And if you have a good strategy in advance and you're preparing, you can do things. Now, uh, I know a lot of people, it's like they get thrown off, like the conversation you and I having. There's some granular details, particularly with antennas. And I liked it, what you were talking about, because I personally like, wire antennas. I like dipoles and end feds. And because this is something you're going to be able to work with. You look at the old spy radios from World War II, those were end fed antennas or dipoles. That was what they had in the kits. Usually, I think they were down around 10 meters. That's where they were working. The thing here is that there's technology, and in the book, I don't explain the technology geeks or hobbyists. To me, a radio is not my personal hobby toy for playing around. It's a tool. Is no
Yeah.
different to me than a trenching tool, a rifle, a dehydrator. It's a survival tool. That's all you think at it. And so in the book, what we do is we say, if you think a transceiver is a sexual preference, the book is for you. A transceiver is just a radio that transmits and receives. But if you don't know that, you say, it's a transceiver, it sounds like a sexual preference. Um, and if that's what you think, then that's who I wrote the book for. And it wasn't easy. You know how hard it is when you get around other hams and everybody just wants to go off into some exotic language, you know. And it's like some guy comes in and he's crying and he's crying, and what happened? He says, "I blew my finals." What?
Oh,
You flunked college? you know, if you're a ham, you know what blowing your finals means. So the thing is, I don't want to get people into all that arcane stuff. I want them to understand exactly how the radios operate, how they come around, so what to use, the different frequencies, the different things that they can do. But it's also important that they need to find hams. Here's something that, from a survival standpoint, really deeply troubles me, is that we have an aging population of hams. You go to
yeah.
if you go to a ham convent, you go to a ham radio club, and you walk in from the back of the room after everyone's there, it reminds you of like when you're on the turnpike in Oklahoma and those shops that have hubcaps,
Yeah.
a wall of hubcaps. And you look at all these chrome domes in front of you, and it's like, whoa, don't turn on the brights too light. The light's too bright, I'll go blind here. And they're old guys. There are a lot of them. I mean, the median age is, well, the 70s or into the 80s. Um, we don't have enough young people coming into amateur radio. And so these people who are very senior, very old right now, but know this stuff are human assets. They're treasures. And so in the book, what we're saying is you need to go find these people and make sure you get them into your community. And the
Yeah.
first thing you do is when you find one of these hams that really knows how to make this stuff work, you pair them up with a young kid that's got an interest in the technology as a 24/7 live-in apprentice. And the job of that kid is to take care of that old man or woman, but through the
Yeah.
osmosis of just doing it to absorb their knowledge. And the hams will want to do that. And there's one book in there I call Knowledge Exchange. And knowledge exchange is going to be this is HF, this is high frequency. Now, this is when you get into high frequency, this is where guys are talking, to folks in Europe and in South America. You're talking for long distances. That's HF radio. And the knowledge exchanges are going to come about once things settle down and the tribulation starts reversing, and we can see the backside when we're going to have blue skies and taste sweet waters once again. It's about rebuilding the world.
Yeah.
And HF radios are going to be the way to do it because the expertise is going to be there, but it's going to be spread all over the place. And so if you're sitting there in Knoxville on your HF and it's working, and you can pick up somebody in New Jersey and you're doing it, now you have a knowledge exchange. They're saying, we found a way to purify water. Here's a great way if you have this particular sickness or illness that you have to deal with it. And what a lot of people don't know about these amateur radios, they're very sophisticated. You can send faxes, you can do video, you can keyboard to each other with TTY. There's all different kinds of ways of sharing and moving information. And this is going to be essential for giving hope for people in the future. And, you know, our website for the book is radiofreeearth.org. Please, folks, remember that. And if you go to my website, Yowza, YOWUSA.com, you can link to it from there. But on Radio Free Earth, and the links are also on my other site, I have 140 minutes of video instruction absolutely free. I don't even want your email address. You just do it anonymously. And if you do it, we have 3 series. Why Radio Free Earth? The other series is post-disaster communications. And then for helping people to get a good start on things, citizen band radios for survival. So for a few $100s, you'll be able to start having the ability to communicate both near and far. And this information is free. I spent 2 months building these videos. This is a labor of love to help people so that they can look at it and they can understand that, yes, they can master this. But, when we come to how are we going to do this, how are we going to use these radios, this is all explained. Everything you need to know to see if it's your cup of tea. But I'm going to tell you that as far as I'm concerned, if you're a mother out there, you want your kids to learn Morse code. And you go, whoa, Morse code, that's what they were using when the Titanic sank, right? It's like, oh, God, is that slow? What's the slowest way to send a message? Wrong. There's something called the Leno test. Jay Leno did it. He took a couple of guys with Blackberries who were speed texters, all right, put them up against a couple of telegraphers with good old standard, keys that the kind that they were using on the Titanic, all right. And what they found was that the guys with this old keys doing Morse code can transmit their messages twice as fast as you can tweet it.
Great. That's
Okay,
that's good.
that's right.
That's
So
that's going to happen. That's exactly what's going to happen. The radio operators will be the only form of communication after this event takes place. They will be the only communications to the outside world. Yes.
you're absolutely right. And if you don't
Yeah.
have it, you're going to be at the mercy of every nasty bastard there is.
The only
And
radio receiver I have here is a Collins 75A2, so that should be sufficient enough for me. I don't have an
mhm.
R39A. I'm sure you know what that is. But this is fine. This is good enough. But the only thing is I don't have a hand crank generator to. Yeah, you're going to need that to power up an extra set of tubes. But I think a
Well, you
newer,
can do hand crank, but you can do, you can do solar. There's all
yeah,
different ways of powering. Frankly, people don't think about it, but after all the ignition modules are fried and, our cars are littering everywhere, you could, there's enough stuff you could actually make a very basic transmitter, a spark gap transmitter out of stuff that you can rip out of a junk car and transmit a distress message. Um, they're going to
yeah,
have batteries. You're going to have alternators. They're going to have bicycles.
Yep.
People, necessity is the mother of invention. People will figure out
Yep.
how to do this. And, but right now it's doing it. And it's like, for example, I think
yeah,
two kinds of radios that are very inexpensive, as long as you get the right kind, are GMRS, these bubble pack radios, all right, and Citizens Band, particularly single sideband CB, SSB CB, and we have the whole series. I explain why that is. And single sideband, these are low power. You can do this stuff. There's a lot of advantages. Uh, I brought a lot of my FEMA training into the book. A lot of the training that I did was CERT. I have hundreds and hundreds of hours of training, and I've deployed that so that uh, when somebody reads the book, they're going to know what to do. It's written not for the actual geek. I wrote the book for leaders, somebody that says, okay, we have to have communications for the community. And here, I'm going to read the book and do it. The book is sizable. It's a big, big book and it's very heavily illustrated. And so, but when you finish reading that and you have people that are, going out, you're going to be scrounging and salvaging. And if you're out there with a team and you're scrounging and salvaging, after you've read my book and you see there's a bunch of two-way radios around, you're going to know what to look for. And you're going to know how to test to make sure it works. You're going to know what to look for. You're going to know who to find, how to work things out. It's, basically when I wrote the book, I said, okay, here's the strategy that you need for communications to keep everyone alive, keep them moving. And all you really need after that are the manuals that are going to come with the radios that you buy. And you don't have to buy the most expensive radios. There are radios that are inexpensive that are fantastic, real solid little producers, performers. And
yeah,
so this is,
Yeah.
and you want to buy them, you want to stockpile these radios in advance. And so, people go, well, okay, so you're saying it's going to cost me $3, 4, $5,000 to do that? And I go, yeah. All right. Well, I got to buy guns. I got to buy, I got to buy 50,000 rounds of ammunition. And they never stop to think. It's like you buy cases and cases of ammunition. That stuff's heavy. You got to schlep it. You got a truck. You got fuel. What are you going to do? Are you going to carry? Are you going to carry 3,000 rounds of ammunition and no
Not
food and
me.
water?
I
Yeah,
want
there
bow and
you go.
arrow.
Or are you going to have a couple of handheld radios so that you can have somebody that's ahead of the group and saying, hey guys, swing wide. We got some nasties off to the east. Okay.
Now,
That's the thing.
Marshall,
Yeah.
I put up your link for Radio Free Earth.org, and I also put up the link for Amazon where they can get your book.
Oh,
It's
thank
in the
you, dear.
chat. It's in
Thank
the
you.
chat. So,
You know,
Rob, that's there
I'm
for
gonna.
you.
Okay.
Go
I'm
ahead.
gonna go. I'm gonna go so you two can wrap up here. But
it was
thank you
Okay,
nice
for
thank
talking
you.
to
calling.
you. Nice
Thank you.
talking to you.
Okay. See you again soon. Bye bye.
Thanks,
73.
Rob. Rob is actually not far from me. He's a couple hours away from me, and we have talked about, surviving together because he likes the fact that I'm on the farm and that. So, yeah, we've talked about it, Marshall.
Well, I'm
I
glad to
talk.
hear that.
Yeah, I speak to him on the phone frequently, and we talk about, if it looks like something's going to be going down or whatever, we'll hook up or whatever. But yeah, I've got the theory of the community, getting the community together. I have that theory.
Hmm.
So, Marshall, we burned through 2 hours so fast when you're here with me. I just love having you on. I will have you come back. You're just a delight to have on and such a plethora of information. I mean, we could talk for days. I, I would just love to have a pajama party with you.
That would be fun. That'd be fun.
We'll call it a prepper pajama party.
Yeah, with a wet bar.
What the heck are you doing in California? My God, are you waiting for the rocking and rolling or what?
Actually, I'm up in the high Sierras. I'm in one of the areas. It's a survivable area. I'm working on my next two books are going to be Perpetual Genesis, but I'm also doing the advanced work on my book, Win-Win Dome Communities. And this is going to be about how to actually build communities that are all hazard, survival, family oriented, permanent communities. And this has really required a lot of traveling. I've been working on this book for 5 years, actually, and
Mm,
I've been going around the country. I've been to, Montana, Washington State, um, Wyoming, Arkansas, North Carolina, Georgia, Minnesota, and two or three others. And I just, over the years, have just been flying in and doing ground reconnaissance. I fly into a town, rent a nice big SUV, and just go out there, and I'm seeing, how survivable these situations are, the people, the situations. And I'm putting this together because I believe that the whole strategy of, 10 or 12 people, me and mine prepping, nah, you're bunker bunnies. They're going to
mhm.
be predators, and they're going to wait for you to come up from underground. And when you do, they're going to find you, and it's going to be ugly, and you're going to die badly because you're a stranger in a strange land. You've been down in your bunker, you're eating your organic MREs and watching The Sound of Music 5,000 times. And um, you,
I just pictured that movie where that guy goes underground because he thinks that the nuclear war is going to happen in the 50s. I can't think of the name of that
I
movie.
remember that. Yeah, I saw that. It
Yeah,
was a
and
great
he makes
movie.
his family watch Jackie Gleason over and over and over
Oh,
again.
you know, it's like that's it. After 500 times of the honeymooners, you say, "God, take me in my sleep." You know?
I'll be his wife. Remember, his wife kept going in the kitchen. She ran out of booze. She's drinking the cooking sherry.
Alice
Cause
to
she
the moon, to the moon. I remember.
and he kept telling his wife, "We can't go up top. They're crazy up there. We gotta stay down here." And she was like, "I'm gonna wring your neck."
Yeah, I mean, people think they're down in bunkers. You're not gonna. I'm talking about you don't build bunkers. That's Cold War sheltering. My book is
Yeah.
going to be about actually creating very comfortable underground living conditions that
Mhm.
it's a permanent community. Instead of saying the whole Cold War thing is survive for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, maybe half a year, and then come up to the surface, everybody's dead. And after the radiation dies down, you're clever, you'll figure it out from there.
That's
Boy, is that a
sounds like the
stupid
plan to
idea.
me. Well, here's, one of the things that I think people should right now stop doing is worshiping the dollar bill because baby, you aren't taking it with you. Just, and here's one of the things I want you to maybe put in one of your books. Things that money can't buy. Manners, morals, respect, character, common sense, trust, patience, class, integrity, and love.
Yeah. And a mom that kisses the boo boo.
Oh, we're gonna have fun with this pajama party. Maybe we should get a conference room and then sell tickets. Survival pajama party.
2 drink minimum.
Oh, thank you so much for coming out and spending time with us tonight, Marshall. You're such a delight to talk to.
So are you. I always enjoy our time together.
Well, there's always a reason that someone crosses your path, and I think we're just two little peas in a pod here, and there was a purpose for us to cross, and remember, we're the wise ones,
Ah,
because we know, and
that's
that
it.
people should listen to us because we're the wise ones.
Yeah. With a good sense of humor.
Okay, Marshall. Well, thank you so much. Hey, how about if I get a hold of you and we set up another date for you to come back and we'll pick this up where we left off.
Absolutely. Love to.
Okay, sweetie. Thank you so much, and you have a blessed night.
You too.
Bye bye. And that was Marshall Masters. Y'all get out there and buy his book, Radio Free America. I think it's Radio Free America. Is it? I'm tired, you
Radio
guys.
Freedom.
Radio Freedom. There you go. Anyways, the
Radio.
links are up there in the chat, you guys. And, you know, check Marshall's site out. And, you will learn a lot. He's got several other books too. You can just Google Marshall's name and a whole plethora of stuff pops up for you. But on that note, I want to thank everybody for joining us. I hope you all enjoyed the show. And I want you to have a safe and peaceful weekend. And remember, Bad Baby loves you.